organizing committee for inviting me to this conference. This is my first JALT conference, and it's been a really positive experience. So I'm very happy to be here with you today. I'll be talking about something that I do at Simon Fraser University, which is in Vancouver, BC. And I work with a group of volunteer students through a program called peer education. And peer education provides opportunities for students to volunteer in various capacities. I work in the Student Learning Commons, which is located in the library, which that strange looking building on the right is the library. SFU was built in 1965. It's mostly concrete. On a beautiful sunny day, it's a beautiful campus. It's located 370 meters above sea level. So on a beautiful sunny day, it's a beautiful place, but in the winter, we get a lot of rain in Vancouver. It can be dark and gloomy. And but I've worked there for about 12 years, and I really enjoy, especially what I really like about my job is working with students and training students to be EAL peer educators. So what we're going to do today is I'm going to walk you through some of the training that I give to the student volunteers. We'll cover all of it, of course, but I have several activities planned as well that I have done with the peer educators that I think you'll enjoy as well. It's customary at SFU, and since we're role-playing a training session, to begin with a land acknowledgement. The 3 SFU campuses, in fact, much of Metro Vancouver, is located on Indigenous First Nations land. And so I'd like to begin with a land acknowledgement. So the SFU acknowledges the Musqueam, Squamish, Tsleil-Waututh, Coetzee, and Coquitlam nations, and peoples on whose ancestral, unceded, and rightful lands the 3 SFU campuses are located. This figure on the right it's called a welcome figure. It was carved out of red cedar by a First Nations artist named Jody Broomfield, and it stands at the main entrance to the SFU campus. You can see the library in the background there. What I'll do today, I've divided my talk into 2 parts, productive training and critical training. So the first part, I'll provide some context for you. I'll look at the linguistic landscape of Vancouver and also the SFU campus, the student demographic there. We'll jump into our first activity called My Plurilingual Identity. Then I'll move into talking about peer education in general, some of the goals and values of the program, and I've given you all, I think you all have a little postcard there which kind of captures the main goals of the program, which we'll talk about. I'll move into specifically what I do in the EAL, or English as an Additional Language Peer Education program, and in particular, a very popular service, very highly in demand, is our Conversation Partners program. So the student volunteers work one-to-one with mostly international students, helping them with their conversational support and cultural knowledge of Canada. The second part is kind of looking at critically things that we do. I'm going to show you some data from something a student wrote. Nobody want to make friend with bad English is a direct quotation. So kind of how do international students navigate a new country, a new campus in a new language? And my second activity is really designed to promote student agency. It's very similar to, I think, some of the principles that Donna Brinton talked about community language teaching. So I'll talk about that with you as well. To begin, talk a little bit about Vancouver. In 2016, these are statistics from Statistics Canada. 2016, there were about 1.1 million immigrants came to Vancouver. There's close to 180 immigrant languages spoken in Vancouver, so it's extremely diverse. If we look at some statistics here, we see that the mother tongue of the Vancouver population, English is is still out front, not by much though, and 41.9% speak another language. So Canada has 2 official languages, English and French. So other languages, this also includes Indigenous languages as well. The mother tongue of immigrants in Vancouver is a very interesting statistic. Almost 80% speak a language other than English or French. And this diversity is reflected in the student demographic at SFU. SFU has significant numbers of students for whom English is an additional language. And in Canada, SFU, EAL students are not only international students, although we have about 20%, but we have also a large number of domestic EAL students, students who were born and raised in Canada or either immigrated to Canada during adolescence, so-called Generation 1.5. And we have some permanent residents and exchange students every term as well. Every year there's an undergraduate student survey. And one of the questions on the survey is, what languages do you regularly speak with your friends and at home? And that's how the SFU uses this institutional label EAL. So some numbers about that. 41% identified as having English as an additional language. And among these students, 27% indicated they speak no English at home. 62% speak at least one non-English language at home, so more English and other languages. And there's an increase in multilingualism in the home as well, with over 50% speaking more than one language at home. So there's a tremendous diversity in Metro Vancouver, but it's also at SFU. So we're going to move into our first task. To do this task, we're going to work for the first maybe 10 minutes individually, and following that we'll do a part 2 where we'll be working in small groups to share what we've done. So what we're going to do is something called my plurilingual identity. And plurilingualism has to do with an individual's linguistic repertoire. And it's focused on the individual. And the idea here, this is something that one of my students created. I had them lie down on the floor and trace their body shapes. And then they, what they did is they draw a picture, right, that represents their whole body self. And then what they do is they're asked to place the languages or the dialects or the cultures they've learned in the past, even if they've learned only a little. Maybe they're studying a new language at school or a language they want to learn about, or maybe they just know a few words in that language, and also the languages they would like to learn in the future. And I encourage the students to also write some words in other languages. And this is Bessie. You can see that she's kind of shown the importance of these different languages in terms of heart shapes, where this is a student who was born and raised in Vancouver, but her parents are from Hong Kong. So up near her brain there, she has Chinese, Cantonese, but English is in her heart. So English is really the language she feels most comfortable in. She also is learning a bit of Japanese, as you can see. She's still grappling with the language system a bit. Some Spanish and some French as well. So this is the part that we want to work on. And also think about possible reasons why you've placed them on the body parts. There's a terrific website where I got permission to use this. It's called Breaking the Invisible Wall. And there are several tasks on here, and this is one of them. And it's all about developing plurilingual pedagogy for students. So I highly recommend it. You can have a look at that, Breaking the Invisible Wall. So that's part 1. Part 2 then, we're going to work in groups of 3, and we're going to show our drawing to our colleagues and talk about the languages and dialects or cultures you've learned, or you may want to learn in the future, and also talk about the reasons why they are. Here's another peer educator who was born in Fiji. Her mother is from Fiji. Her father is, I think, Irish. And so she kind of talked, she identified the different languages, but it's interesting that she kind of colored herself white and brown and asking the question, you know, what color am I? Am I brown? Am I white? Am I both? And down here, she says, is this even possible to be both? So very interesting things that she wrote down here. So I hope you have some paper to write on or a pen. And so what I'd like you to do is just draw a figure of yourself. I'm not going to ask you to lie down on the floor, okay? But any paper that you have, just draw a picture of yourself and then kind of label it according to the different languages and cultures that you've learned. Okay, so I'll give you a few minutes to work on that, and then we'll do some sharing in a small group. So again, this is part one. What's that? Oh, I think I have one. Yeah. This would be, really the purpose of the activity is, I should tell you, is to raise awareness of intercultural differences. That's a big part of it. And also to create spaces for learning in languages other than English. Right, so that's kind of the purpose behind it. It's also a good opportunity for you to get to know some of the other participants. Are you doing it as well?
Yeah.
Okay, I should probably do it too, but I haven't done one for myself. Yeah. Okay, so you can join this group. Awesome, yeah. We need a little more time. Ready to go? Great. All right. So let's find. Maybe we can have three of you work together here, and you three. And the idea is show your drawing to your colleagues, and discuss the languages that you've learned or would like to learn, and the reasons why. And another great thing, if you speak other languages, is teach each other some words from your native languages. Sorry, your languages. Yeah. Okay. All right. Thank you all. Thank you. That sounded like a very rich discussion. Thank you. So I think that this might be fun to do with your students. And it's, again, to get them thinking about raising intercultural awareness. Especially also, an important part of this is to, it kind of creates a space for learning in languages other than English. So that, in that sense, it kind of pushes against the power and the political power of English, in a sense. It brings in these other perspectives. So I think we could probably spend the whole time talking about that. It's very fascinating, but we'll move on. But I refer you to the Breaking the Invisible Wall website. You can find other tasks there that you may want to try out. The context of the website is Toronto, Canada. And so it tends to be talking about that context. All right, thank you. So I'd like to move on to talk about peer education. You all have a card that has these main goals of the program. It's really to develop skills, make connections. Making connections is a really important part of the program. I think the most important thing. It's about building relationships and making connections and building community, helping students feel connected to the SFU community. And it's really about peer-to-peer support. It was a really great thing about it. Peers supporting peers and building each other's collective capacity. Those are kind of the goals. This is the Student Learning Commons, the consultation area where I work at SFU on the 3rd floor of the library. You can see there's consultations happening in that space now. Mission and values of peer education: inclusion, Professional development, we provide opportunities for peers to set professional goals and work towards them. Intentional curiosity and self-discovery, and importantly, related to the conference theme, developing self-efficacy through the program as well. Well-being, and again, very important part of the program is this community building through enhanced connections, building a relationship building, and civic responsibility. When the peers apply to the program, I look at their applications, I interview them, and then they complete 6 hours of online training, and these are the main modules that peers go through. So kind of introduction to peer training, some of the expectations and foundational information. An important part on professionalism and ethics as well. This is a paraprofessional position, so we talk about boundaries and maintaining those boundaries between student and client. Effective communication, how to work with people from a variety of backgrounds, linguistic and cultural backgrounds is really important. We're really big about creating an inclusive community as well, and building a respectful and inclusive community. How to make referrals when students come to you, just knowing the different services that are available for students and being able to refer them to the different units on campus for support. And then there's a section on professional development as well. This is a former peer educator. His name is Ryan, and this is part of the module. One of the great things about the peer training is that students get to watch a few videos from former peer educators, and they share their experiences and give some advice for the new peers. And here Ryan is talking about boundaries and what he can and cannot do. And Ryan was one of my former EAL peer educators. He was also a peer coach. So I'll play this for you, and it's very short, it's just a minute, but we can listen to him.
There are numerous boundaries you'll probably be facing both as an English and additional language peer and as a learning and writing peer. Most of them involve knowing where your role is and where the other peer's role is. So there's a really fine line between, okay, this is what I can help my client with, and this is what I can't help my client with. Some scenarios that have come up mostly involve or homework or papers or projects that the client wants you to help them in. So for example, specifically for me, PowerPoint or Prezi is something that does come up. I know for me, one of the things that I could definitely help my client was preparing for the actual presentation, but actually editing the content of their presentation itself is not within my responsibility. And as much as you do want to help them, you also have to make sure that what we're following is an ethical standard, and this protocol has been placed since the program has been instituted. So it's really important that you follow those guidelines.
Is now at medical school at the University of British Columbia. He went on to medical school. He sounds like a doctor there, I think, when he uses his client, right? He almost sounds like he's a doctor there already. So thanks, Ryan, for that. He's a great fellow. So yeah, it's about boundaries. And again, he's talking in the context of the peer educators, and they provide conversational support mostly, and social support too. So students should not come to them with help with their assignments. And he talked about what he can and cannot do. This is the homepage, a screenshot of the homepage in the Student Learning Commons. So this is an academic support center. We provide writing support, learning and studying, and EAL support as well. We offer this support through workshops, through one-to-one consultations. This is Koichi Haseyama, and Koichi and I work together. We collaborate together to provide EAL support services. Koichi is a PhD candidate in the Faculty of Education, so he's really the reason I'm here. He encouraged me to put a proposal together. I don't think I'd be here talking to you without Koichi, so thank you again, Koichi. Yeah, and so a really popular service that we offer as part of the EAL program is this Conversation Partners program. Hugely in demand. In fact, we cannot fill the demand for this service. And that says something, doesn't it? It really speaks to not only linguistic support, but I think it really speaks to the social conditions around learning a second or an additional language. So how it works is they're paired one-to-one with a student volunteer, and they meet for 1 hour each week somewhere on campus, just for casual conversation. It's terrific service that we offer. And volunteer students who, the peer educators, also get co-curricular recognition on their official SFU transcript. It's called CCR credit. So it appears on their official transcript as well. Who are the peer educators? Well, they're a diverse group of students. These are some photos of some former students that I supervise. They're from a variety of linguistic, cultural, and also discipline-specific backgrounds. And really, this is for the students who look on our website to see what this program is about. Speaking English more confidently, improving the quality of your learning experiences. Again, getting back to that word connected, that notion of being connected to the university. Taking control of their own learning, pursuing their own goals, and critical thinking as well. And this really relates to agency, student agency and self-efficacy. Another thing that the peer educators do is kind of more of the same, but a really important part is to create spaces for cultural exchange. You know, Canada has a lot of kind of quirky customs and things that people say. You're from Canada will know what I'm talking about, but things like, what's up with Canadians in hockey? It seems like everybody, if you don't like hockey, you're like, what? I don't know what's going on. So that's huge. Canadians say sorry a lot. I don't know why. It's just one of the things that really defines a Canadian is always saying sorry. Timbits are little mini donuts at Tim Hortons. Tim Hortons is a huge popular coffee chain named after a hockey player, no surprise. So, you know, this is a place for students to come and ask those questions because otherwise they really wouldn't know the answers to those perhaps. So it's really fun to be involved in this. So in terms of agency, one of the really important things is the third bullet point there, is to foster in students a sense of agency in overcoming barriers they may encounter. A lot of EAL students in Canada may feel marginalized. They may be perceived as illegitimate speakers. And so I think that I'll show you some data in a few minutes about one experience that a student had. But I found a really good definition for agency. It's by Patsy Duff, a renowned scholar from the University of British Columbia. Identity, agency, and second language acquisition. And she defines agency as people's ability to make choices, take control, self-regulate, and pursue their goals as individuals, leading potentially to personal or social transformation. And for me, that really captures, I think, what our program tries to do for students. And, I think we have a few minutes left. If you have any questions.